My wife cheated on me not once but twice in one night. I caught her cheating twice and it became a point of no return in our fate. In this video I will tell the amazing story of the drama that happened in my life after that night's discovery. Turn up the volume and here we go. Hi all, there was a recent story I heard that resonated with me, so to speak. A response addressed to me personally. As a man, I have been called out on the fact that I don't like women. I hesitated for a long time to tell my story of my whole, shall we say, life. Some had already heard it about my ex-wife. So I won't go into the distant wilderness. I'll start from the very moment I met my wife and end with today. So one day I left an ad for an acquaintance on a dating site and, as they say, got caught up in my business and forgot about it. It must have been 5 days and then I received an email from a woman unknown to me. Well, I will omit the text of the letter, it takes a long time to retell in general. Asked to meet. The meeting, of course, as you might guess, took place. We met, she told me that she was married before me. I also told her that her husband was such a jerk he had found someone else. Again, this is not so important, although I will talk about this a little later. So we started dating, time passed, my daughter was born, everything was good. And my mom accepted her as her own daughter. Everything was just perfect until New Year's Eve, or rather December 29th, did not happen. Casas at her work celebrate the new cat, while the teen, the Bushki, came to drink. So we lived with her in a dorm. She had his own room. So she, as I said, tipsy, went into the kitchen to put the kettle. As that evening I met her at work, we bought a cake. We decided to celebrate. Well, her phone rang. I pick up the phone and there, as you might guess, a man's voice. Well, in general. Again, I will not go into details. I will only say that we talked to him. He told me that he and my wife. Well, yes, you read right, candy bouquet period. Intimate in general. I certainly did not give it much importance. Such calls that night were two and they were from different men. Well, I do not know. I certainly pressed his wife to the wall. Well, she twisted that night we had intimacy with her all as it should be. So we sat down to drink tea and then her phone rings. She chatted with me. I do not know, 10 minutes tops. When finished said call the neighbor floor below. Asking to come in, she bought a new perfume she wants to show off. She grabbed my coat, put on her boots, a hat, and took off. She came back, opened the door and said I'll be back soon, wait for me. 2 hours passed, she was gone. 3 hours passed, she was gone. The child came from her friend. It was 7:30 p.m. I thought, well, of course jealousy was playing. I took the child to a neighbor. I dressed myself. I went out of the dorm and ran into that very neighbor with perfume. But she half laughing said I saw her getting into your car. Well, I said thank you. Of course it came quickly. I ran the bus stop, got into the bus and drove to his mother since she lived on the other side of town where incidentally is now writing to you. So I got to his mother about an hour and a half since it was winter snow, traffic jams all over the city, arrived, drank tea. My mother gave a meal, probably another half an hour, when my cell phone rings and yes, calling his wife. Well, I told her that I know everything on this, I miss what happened next. I will say only one thing. After that my wife called 2 more times, turned on the fool. Of course I got mad, called her the very last words. We divorced her 3 months later. Then there was a period that my wife insisted on meeting, since I had already lived with my mother after the divorce. But these meetings had only an intimate nature. Well, again, I know that my wife is cheating on me. I could not even make love to her, as in this process she just cried in general. After that we broke up. It was April the following year. As I have already told in one of the stories, I had another woman. Yes, Heather appeared. It was not serious. I met a woman, we had a connection with her once and that was it. But before meeting my wife, I had a woman whom I met a few years ago. She worked as a simple checkroom attendant in the locker room of the City Oval, Neutrum Theater. Unfortunately, she was married. We were introduced to her by my mother as one evening we were with her at a performance and there we met. A certain spark slipped between us. Well, we started a romance, met, slept together until one day her husband did not recognize us, came looking for me, not found it, insisted that she quit her job. Well, that is how our relationship with her stopped so far. And then on New Year's Eve, a year after the incident with my wife calls actually my ex-wife to congratulate. Well, began to say let's start all over again. I was certainly angry at her for lying for treason. Well, that happened had deleted her number. A fool. I understand. I regret here I have one story accused that I do not love women. As I said, so I have not told anyone all this. I opened my soul for the first time. Do not believe me. Here, in spite of all the betrayals of my ex, but I still love her. All my thoughts are only about her. Even my mother does not understand me, says that I am sick of her, how to be further and how to get out of the state. I understand that I need salvation and as soon as possible. Please share your experiences, if any, or at least sensible advice. I hope something does work. This is the story, thank you in advance. And now on to the second story. In this amazing video, I will tell you the story of an infidelity that had unbelievable consequences. My wife betrayed me with a Chechen man, but she didn't expect him to track them down and punish them for it. Immerse yourself in a world of drama and horror with me and we begin. Good afternoon to all. I guess my story can be called in a nutshell as there is no turning back after cheating. But first things first, my name is Ibrahim, I am only 33 years old. I'm Chechen myself, but I married a Russian. I'm married because we loved each other. I went against the will of all my relatives. We've been married for 5 years. We have a little boy, he's 3. One day I was surfing the internet and read about one such thing. There is this app called WhatsApp. I think you are all familiar with it. So if you delete the application and restore it again, it will be restored along with the deleted messages. In my job, I have frequent business trips and I confess to you that I would be willing to take my wife and child with me to be together. But as you might have guessed, she didn't want to. According to her, she loved me more than life. I myself am extremely disapproving of cheating. Of course, there were thoughts of going out, I'll be honest with you, but I was faithful to her in everything. And then my business trip comes to an end. I'm flying home. I was away for 2 weeks or so. During that time, my son was at my parents in Chechnya, arrived, warm welcome, everything as it should be. And she tells me she's going to her friend's birthday party. I was invited to go with her. But as you might have guessed, I was tired. I thought I'd at least get a decent night's sleep. She went to take a shower and she takes a long time to do that. In the meantime, I picked up her phone, did as I had read on the internet. And what do you think I found there? Yes, her correspondence with some come out. There were things in there that I don't even feel comfortable writing in detail. The places they were doing it, they talked about it all, read a lot of stuff. Dropped the whole chat to my email, cleaned up my tracks and went to rest in the meantime. She had already left, by the way. As it turned out later, she was on her way to him. You can judge me for not doing anything. But I waited for the next day as I found out about the meeting place. Of course, I didn't sleep at first. Such indifference woke up. Not because it was already there to begin with, it was only because I had read all that filth. All that stench, somehow everything in me died in an instant. She came home at 4 o'clock in the morning and took a bath and went to bed next to her. Can you believe me? Lying next to her? After that, there's nothing more disgusting. Anyway, I clenched my nerves into a fist and eventually fell asleep. The next day, coming home from work, she told me that she would go to the beauty salon. Something to do with her face. I do not know a lot about these things. I saw her off, got dressed quickly and drove to the agreed meeting place. There were a lot of cars, so I did not know which one was Camille. But soon I saw my spouse who was standing at the entrance to the cafe and of course immediately realized who he was as she got into his car. By the specifics of my job, it just so happens I know what surveillance is and how it all happens. I followed them, of course. At a distance, of course. As my car was not small, I was beautiful, I could see me. We drove for a long time. Eventually we stopped at a park and there was a parking lot next door where there were quite a few cars too. They parked. It was already about 11 p.m. and it was dark outside. I picked up my phone, turned on the camera. I was taking pictures so there wouldn't be any future custody questions. And I slowly walked up to the car and there, in all the glory of the picture of her taking from him. I stood there filming for a minute or so, then I started laughing hysterically and of course they stared at me in shock. My wife saw me and her face must have changed from the light. I don't know, like 30 times. I opened the door, pulled him out of the car and so to speak, hit him a couple of times, but it was enough as he lost consciousness. At that time, my wife was sitting in the car sobbing hysterically. I told her 3 times to get out of the car. Eventually I had to drag her out by her hair. I do not beat women. I never thought that such a chance is even given. But I could not resist and I slapped her sonorous slap in the face. Anyway, she ended up lying down next to him. There is nothing to be proud of. I do not argue and even in some ways I regret what happened between me and my wife. Anyway, back to the story. I drove home and then sat staring blankly at the TV off, thinking of only one thing, my son. I love him very much. And he is an exact copy of me. I wonder how to go on with my life. She came home 2 hours later, rang the doorbell a couple of times. I opened the door and said you don't live here anymore and just shut the door. So what do you think? Yes, she sat by the door until about 5 o'clock in the morning. There were neighbors coming out and there was a commotion. It didn't bother me at all anymore but still I let her in, told her I was giving her until 12 o'clock in the afternoon to pack her things and leave. And that I would not hear from her again. Of course, as usual, hysteria tears passed out twice. I really don't know if she really did, but I didn't care at all. Was and is at 12. She left. The same cameo came to pick her up. And about my son. Of course I said right away that I could forget about him. In the end there was a trial. Of course, they hired a very serious lawyer and I won the case. My son stayed with me. My point is all this you see, I am very rich, I earn very decent money. 3 apartments in Moscow, 2 cars, real estate abroad. True recently, but still. So moral is this. If a woman is a horse, so to speak, she will rarely do it, even with you, in spite of everything she has, had everything left. A beggar, men. It's hard to take that, I know. But my advice is simple. Move on. If your wife at least once cheated on you, there is no way back. Do not take it. Do not forgive. It's filth, even if you love, you cannot forgive this. After that you are not men. Peace to you. That's what I want to wish you. Don't cheat, friends. And I want to thank you for finishing this video to the end, for subscribing to the channel, giving likes, dislikes and it's been a while since the last time, so it might not fit. Don't worry, we'll make it work. Just relax. I said this to my ex-wife, whom I thought I had parted with, as she looked worriedly at me. Think it'll fit. It just barely did. Sharing this conversation with my ex-wife, I cherished this happy moment and couldn't help but smile. My name is Matt. I work in IT. Feeling the strain of sitting at a computer every day, I've recently started walking a block to get some exercise. Today, I left work early, and the sky is bathed in the colors of the setting sun. Walking down a quiet main street, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a shop window. I made a right smile in my slightly wrinkled suit and checked my ear. There was an empty earrings hole. Maybe it's starting to close up. I really should wear something in it. I smirked. It's not prohibited at work, and I thought, maybe I should wear something subtle. Realizing I had finally come to terms with the thought, I laughed at myself. The reason I got earrings. It was because of my wife. Nope, my ex-wife, Karen, who couldn't wear her wedding ring all the time. She wanted to wear earrings instead. When she said she couldn't wear it, it might be misleading. According to Karen, wearing it on my finger, I might lose it, and it gets dirty, doesn't it? I want to take care of the ring you bought me, Matt, she said. So, we decided to wear less tarnishing earrings in place of our wedding rings. Neither Karen or I had ever gotten earrings before, and we both shouted in pain when we did. Together, we continued to wear subtle yellow stone earrings, saying ouch and it hurts. To say it myself might sound boastful, but Karen is stunningly beautiful, kind-hearted, and responsible. We attended the same college, and she even led a club. We dated from our college years, and she's always been there, pulling me along, and that's how I fell for her. After getting jobs, we get married and lived happily for 3 years. To clarify, it's not that we grew to dislike each other and then divorced. The reason for our divorce was, in a way, a difference in values or perspective. To put it simply, intimacy faded. In our 3rd year of marriage, we both settled down at work, and I wanted kids soon. Karen said she loved children, and I believe ours would be adorable. But just as I had that thought, Karen began to distance herself from me. I thought it might be an emotional or physical problem on my end, so I initially dismissed it. But when it became clear that she was avoiding intimacy, I decided to talk to Karen. Karen, you've been avoiding me lately, can you tell me why? Huh? You know, communication shouldn't be one-sided. If I've done something to upset you, I'd like to fix it. At that time, I thought there might be an issue with me. The two of us get along well, and Karen is always sweet to me. So I thought, maybe, it's a matter of technique. But then, I received an unexpected response from Karen. It's not that you have a problem, really. Yes, I'm sorry, I should have talked to you. You see, I don't want kids. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Maybe it's old-fashioned, but I thought having kids after getting married was the norm. But, you like kids, right? You used to volunteer and play with them. I love kids, but I don't want one of my own, I'm sorry. I knew you wanted kids, and I couldn't say it. I thought maybe after we get married, I'd want them, but I just can't. This is my fault too, but we didn't have a proper discussion about the child. I just assumed Karen wanted them too. I know I messed up now, but I didn't think so at the time. I love Karen, of course. But is there a point in a marriage without children? I started to think that it wouldn't be different from just being lovers. We talked about it many times after, but we never saw eye to eye. If we stayed together, I feared we'd grow resentful and end up hating each other. So, wanting to avoid the toxic environment, we divorced. I'm grateful it happened before we started despising each other. But I was lonely. And because of that, I took off the earring I wore with Karen. Along with the ring. The earring hole from before our marriage hasn't fully closed yet, perhaps because I wore it for so long. It's been a year since our divorce. Maybe it's time to move on. With that thought, I headed to a jewelry store to buy a new piece. Why not a general store? It felt awkward to enter one alone as a man. In a jewelry store, it's easy to pretend I'm buying a gift for a girlfriend, and I thought if I'm going to wear something, it might as well be good quality. Inside the jewelry store, there were sparkling gems everywhere. In one corner, there was an earring section. I wanted something simple like before, with a stone. While browsing, a sales clerk approached me. Can I help you find something? Oh, yes. I'm looking for a simple earring. Wait. To my surprise, the sales associate was Karen. She seemed just as shocked. Apparently, she had switched jobs and now works here. It's been a while. A year, have you been? Oh, you too. Did you change your makeup? I adjusted it for work, and it seems like you didn't iron your suit, it's all wrinkled. After a long separation and having not spoken since our divorce, Karen and I were able to talk just like before. I had bought a new earring, this time with an orange stone, and glanced at the store's clock. It was exactly 5 p.m. It seemed Karen was just getting off work. How about dinner? There's a new Italian place nearby. Oh, I've been curious about that place. Let's go. Karen and I entered the restaurant together. Having been a year since we last met, we spend our time reminiscing about the good old days, talking about work, sharing stories of our blunders. Even though we sat down for dinner, we got so caught up in our conversation that before we knew it, it was pitch dark outside. I really should head home, but to be honest, I feel like there's so much more to talk about. It seemed Karen felt the same as she invited. Why don't you come over to my place? It's close by. I didn't have a reason to refuse, and it didn't seem like Karen had a new boyfriend. With both of us having the day off tomorrow, I ended up staying at Karen's. Things might have progressed quickly, but considering we spent 3 years of married life together, it just felt natural. We talked until the next day. So, one of my juniors mistook gravy for coffee. It was hilarious. I burst out laughing. Ha, why do you even have gravy at work? It felt good. It was as if we were back in our college days, and it put my heart at ease. This past year, the loneliness I had felt was gone. I realized I still love Karen. And now, I see how selfish my thinking was back then. Karen? Yo, what's up? I know it's late, but I want to apologize to you. If I miss this chance, I might never be able to convey my feelings. I looked straight into Karen's eyes. Karen seemed to have an idea of what I was about to say as she gazed back at me. I was foolish. I was so obsessed with the idea of having kids that I never considered your feelings. You're the one who would carry and give birth to our child. It'd be a huge responsibility for you, and yet, I never had a proper discussion with you about it. I'm truly sorry. I bowed my head to Karen. Being able to talk to her again made me realize the significance of her presence in my life. At this point, even if we didn't have kids, as long as I can be with Karen again, that's all I want. I also wanted to talk about that, and Matt, I owe you an apology too. I was scared to tell you the real reason I didn't want children. Karen began to speak softly. You know I have a younger sister, right? Yeah, there's quite an age gap between you two, right? 6 years. When I was 6, I heard her. The story from when Karen was 6 years old continued. Karen deeply adored her newborn baby sister. One day, when their mom stepped out briefly, the baby began to cry. Back then, I thought she was missing mom and felt lonely, so even though I was told not to, I wanted to comfort her and picked her up. However, a 6-year-old girl can't suddenly carry a 2 or 3-month-old baby. Trying to console her crying sister, Karen tried to imitate how adults hold babies, but during that attempt, she accidentally injured her sister. I lost balance because I was being careful with her wobbly head. She hit her arm against the wall. Thankfully, it wasn't a serious injury, but one wrong move and she might have broken a bone or gotten more hurt. I shouldn't have tried to carry a baby with such a delicate neck, especially at my young age. Seeing her cry continuously because of the pain scared me. I realized how fragile babies truly are. After that incident, Karen developed a trauma towards holding infants. I love kids, but I can't help but fear that I might hurt them again. It was terrifying. As Karen lowered her head and whispered these words, she looked up at me. But something changed in me. In the past year since her divorce, it turns out that Karen's sister, April, had given birth. It was around 6 months ago, and Karen met her nephew. April asked me to hold him. I resisted with all my might. But April said, "You're still haunted by the past, aren't you? I know you love kids. It's okay. As long as you love the child, you won't hurt him, because you're a kind soul." Taking advice from a nurse on how to hold the baby, Karen held her nephew and was captivated by his angelic smile. He was so adorable and delicate. Holding him, I felt how precious a baby truly is. And, it reminded me of you, Matt. I did want to have a baby with you. After the divorce, I regretted it. I just listened quietly, deeply respecting Karen for overcoming her long-held trauma. Karen somehow managed to overcome the trauma she had been carrying for so long. What might seem trivial to others was a significant step for her. Knowing she thought of me as she took that step warmed my heart. I know it's presumptuous, but I want to be with you again. I feel the same way. Our eyes met. The time span of a year showed us how much we genuinely cared for each other. I still love Karen, and she still loves me. I want us to be together again. That's what I felt. I guess. If we're getting back together, I didn't need to buy these earrings. I took out the earrings with orange stone I bought today from my bag. If I'm with Karen, I can wear what I used to every day. Shrugging about its newfound redundancy, she said, actually, I bought the same one. What? Karen laughed as she took out the exact earrings. If we're getting remarried, our commemorative earrings should be our second set, right? I couldn't help but laugh. It had been a while since we wore earrings. Come to think of it, Karen was the one who put on my previous earrings. Hey, put it on for me, please. Karen showed her ear, pleading. I found it endearing and moved closer to her, saying, all right. But it's been so long, it might not fit. It's okay, everything will be fine. Just relax. I said as I touched Karen's earlobe and put an earring through it. You think it'll go through? It was a close call. Really? Glad it wasn't closed up. Now, Karen puts an earring through my ear. The new earrings feel foreign, but they are more than perfect to commemorate our new beginning. Years later, in my arms, there was a tiny life. Thank you, really, thank you, Karen. Oh, stop. You are crying too much. After remarrying, we had decided, after discussions, to have a child. Of course, we didn't push it. We just hoped for it. So for the first few years of our marriage, it was just the two of us. Then, this year, Karen's pregnancy was discovered. After a difficult labor, Karen let me hold our daughter. We'll have to take the earrings out for a while. It's risky if she pulls on them. True, the holes might close up this time. Karen, laughing joyfully, gazed at me and our daughter. Seeing her so happy, and our daughter's innocent smile. Surrounded by the two of them, I feel truly blessed. If they close up, let's get earrings. Matching ones with our daughter. Sounds good, but what if she throws them away during her rebellious phase? I turned pale. I can't bear the thought of being rejected by such a cute daughter, but it's a rite of passage for all fathers. However, this I can promise. No matter what, I will protect both of you. I vowed this to my smiling daughter.